still to this day, that creeps me out.
Right?
Just
Me
saying.
too. Me
Stuff,
too, sir. Me
Stephanie.
too. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. You know, the holiday seasons for us here in the U.S. are coming up for Thanksgiving.
Yes.
This Thursday coming, gonna be crazy. Hey, Francine. Hey, Jen. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Stephanie.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to gather it all up. We're doing a little something different at our house. You know, our son, is a sheriff's deputy, and
Mm-hmm.
for the county we live in, and we've actually gone ahead and invited all the deputies that are on duty that
Oh,
night to stop by here for a meal while they're on the road. If they got to take it with them to go, they
that is
can,
so
and
great.
take back something for the dispatchers. It's
That's
yeah.
so great. That's so
Well, it's,
wonderful.
they're working. What are they supposed to do for food, right? I mean, they
Absolutely.
may have,
Yeah.
yeah, they may have had a Thanksgiving at home briefly, maybe, but so we're going to
Yeah.
do that and just kind of our way of giving back a little bit and making sure everybody gets a good home cooked meal. You know,
That's wonderful. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
hey, Nadine.
Um, so this week, I hear that some states in New York got a lot of snow.
Yeah, yeah, I've got family up there on Long Island, and they got hammered pretty heavy. Yeah, but it's typical. I mean, we're looking at November into December. Yeah, those are heavy snow months. But
Yeah.
then I saw a picture or a video from you with snow coming down.
Just a little sprinkle. That's all we got. You know what? I can still see the grass today. So there's
So,
parts of Ontario, province of Ontario, that did get some
hey man,
snow and got hammered a little bit, but we were okay. This neck of the woods, so they can keep it because we know it's coming. There's no
hey,
surprise. It comes every year. We know it's coming. But
yeah, it's funny because what you call the sprinkling would shut down the state I live in.
it's
Literally
like
would shut down the
we
state
got
I
enough
live
to,
in. Kind of
yeah,
crazy.
enough to sprinkle on a donut is what we got. That's about it. So
Sprinkle on it. All right. Yeah. So I mean, other than that, everything going okay? Everything good?
everything's good.
You need some
To
more
this week did
Himalayan
some.
salt lamps, or
You what?
do you need some more Himalayan salt lamps? Are you good? Or
Just I always keep myself protected. You never know. This week I did a bunch of cleansings. Again, last week I touched base about it. Did some pretty dark cleansings. Going to be doing one in Ottawa on Tuesday. Traveling a couple hours to help some voodoo stuff going on. Going to be assisting with that. It's just been crazy. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. As you guys know, and for those of you who are just joining us, um, I cannot see everybody's screens. Richard can, I shouldn't say screens, comments. I don't have all the screens that Richard has. So if there's a specific comment for me, please don't hesitate to put your name in it. We simulcast in multi-networks, therefore we're in a few different places. So if you really want to get your questions answered specifically, then put our names in the comments. Otherwise, I will do my best to keep up, but thanks for joining us.
yeah. So we have a special guest, and I'm kind of holding him back from jumping in.
I'm so excited.
Wanted to
I'm
kind of
so
get out there a
excited.
little bit. This gentleman has been on this show actually as a guest co-host for me when my buddy over here was not doing well and down and out for a little bit. And he's a
Yeah.
great guy. I've known him for a long time. I don't know if he's willing to admit to that, but I know I am. You know, just that kind of we've investigated together even years ago. He's a great guy, and he was one of the team members on the show 28 Days Haunted that is out on Netflix. Now I'm gonna just jump right out the gate. I'm gonna say this in absolute just honesty about the show. I
Mm-hmm.
watched it. I've been a paranormal investigator for over 25 years. Sometimes I don't want to say that because I'm old. Hey, Brandy, but you know, to me, it was, and hopefully there'll be a second season. But it was um, a very original, very genuine,
Mm-hmm.
very
Absolutely.
tough
Absolutely.
investigation. I mean, if you could ever imagine yourself in a location overnight, 9, 10, 12 hours, maybe a whole weekend, and you come out of there beat up metaphysically, imagine doing it for 28 days straight without a break.
I, you know, I watched it. I watched it beginning to end. Richard, you and I have both done television. We both understand both sides of the camera. I was all 5 seasons with the show that I was with. You were multiple seasons, so we understand the dynamic in terms of production, post-production, scripting, all of that stuff.
Right.
The authenticity behind this program, to me, was superb. Not only in terms of cinematics, as far as like, what content was put onto the screen for us to see, but even looking at it from a paranormal investigator, psychic medium, and television personality, there's no faking that. Like, there's no faking that. I was with the program the whole entire time. I related to a lot of the stuff, much of the stuff that occurred for these people. I have witnessed myself and been a part of. And so how do you fake that? You can't. You absolutely can't. The health was a concern for people, so I applaud these people. I'm losing an earring. I applaud these people because, they had to put themselves in harm's way to do this, to get this content. And I think that goes unrecognized, and they deserve some recognition for this.
Well, I know Shane Pittman. He was on a show. I know Shane.
Yeah, sure.
I've known Jeremy a lot longer. And the one thing I will say, not that I have to, but the one thing I will say about Jeremy, I'm not just buttering him up because he's coming on the show, but the one thing I will say is that there's anyone that operates with integrity for paranormal entertainment,
absolutely,
for you, the viewer, it's Jeremy. I would not think for a half a second that man's going to do anything to pad or BS anything, because that's not who he is.
Yeah, so call it as you see it.
Look at the investigation in its raw form, which is what it was. Raw form. This wasn't anything you go, hey, we're going to set up an investigation here. We're going to do EVP sessions for an hour here. No. They went with the flow of the energy in the building. And that changes the dynamic a lot in your investigation, as well as the damage, in reality, that it can cause you. And I know everybody came out of there beat up. Yeah, I know they did. And I applaud guys like Jeremy and I know Shane. I applaud them for taking that beating. I probably would do too, because I'm a crazy person that likes I'm for punishment as well. But the thing of it is they're doing it for a purpose, and it was done as an experiment. And it just kind of really goes to show for me that going into a building for 7 or 8 hours really doesn't garner you any kind of real relationship with the other side.
No, exactly.
I don't think so. I think when you go in again and again, I think the only break, like with him, his partner was Brandy, the only break they had was a step outside the building. That was the only break they had. Oh, other than when he was hospitalized for the night, that was the only break he got. But the thing of it is going into this and pushing forward to try to get to that fine line of the connection with the other side and knowing what's going on and getting the story, because the backgrounds are really, really good. The backgrounds that they were able to pull out of the building and the energy itself, to me, were strong, very detailed, and they all worked extremely well to that end. But I got a couple of questions for Jeremy.
Me too. I'm excited. Me too.
As a fan of the show, I have a couple of questions.
Right? Totally.
So, guys, if you haven't seen the show, damn it, get on Netflix, will you? Everybody's got Netflix, I thought. I mean, come on. But if you haven't seen
28 Days Haunted.
Yeah, as a fan of paranormal entertainment, even being on several shows myself, as a fan of paranormal entertainment, Lori and I were just glued to the TV, and to me, if I have to be the champion for another season of a TV show, it's going to be that one. The thing of it is, it takes a lot on the family to be away for 28 days straight. Mm-hmm. So there's another part of the thing you have to deal with, a lot of that. And I know Jeremy is married, I know Shane's married and got children, and just out of those two people alone that I know, only imagine.
Yeah. I agree.
I know I'm going on. I'm not usually this talkative, I know, but I got excited about it. So
no, this is good. Passion is good. Passion is good.
Yep. So you ready to do it? You ready to bring him on?
I'm so excited. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, the infamous and talented Jeremy Leonard. There he is.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, how are y'all doing? I'm doing great. How about yourselves? And Richard, make sure you tell your son thank you for his service.
Wow, thank you. I will. I'll tell him. He scares me, but I'll tell him. Yeah, I spent some time myself with a gun and a badge, and that's some scary stuff sometimes.
It is, and it keeps getting worse and worse every year, it seems.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, buddy, we got a lot to talk. I got a
So much.
burning question in my head. I gotta know. Gotta
Shoot,
know.
shoot.
Tell me how many people have commented and tell me if you felt because you saw the show yourself, right? After it was done, you looked at it, right? Tell me why. Why didn't anyone else, I think, notice that I knew and talked to? Why didn't anybody else notice that the energy in the buildings separated you from your partner? They were driving a wedge, and it wasn't just your location; it was yours and Shane's, and I mean all three of them between the sensitive or psychic medium and the investigators. It drove a wedge, and there was a problem towards the end with every single team in that regard. Did you notice that?
Yeah, absolutely. Watching it, obviously, I noticed it, and I think it just kind of plays into the whole 28-day theory. And it seems like every team it started affecting them at the same time. So if you think about it, when you first go into a location, the spirits, you're kind of new to the spirits, and they say, oh, they'll be here for a little while and then they'll leave. But when the spirits realize you're not leaving, so then guess what? They're going to try to do everything they can to get you out of their territory. And I think that's where you see it. I mean, energy is very powerful, whether it's of a positive nature or a negative nature. And, for me and Brandy, especially, we were in a very negative natured environment for 28 days, and it challenged us both beyond my wildest dreams. Going into this, I played out all these scenarios in my head of what can happen and how to deal with it and all of these things, but I don't think that you truly understand, just like you were saying in the opening, that from a paranormal investigator standpoint, you're in these locations for a very short period of time. So you
Yep.
don't get that full effect like we did being locked in. And we were literally locked in for 28 full days.
So
You know,
let's dial it back a little bit. So you had gone in for 28 days on the premise that, for ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that don't know, that Lorraine and Ed Warren years ago had a theory that they figured it took 28 days or around about time for you to build up that energy field or to be able to communicate. Am I right? To be able to get the best evidence necessary in an investigation, correct?
Well, somewhat. See, we didn't even really know that Tony, which is Ed and Lorraine's son-in-law, was really
yeah.
even
Tony's
connected.
bad, right?
We did not know they were even connected to the show until
Oh,
after filming. All we knew was this: okay, they're going to do this wild experiment based off of the 28 days. That's all we knew. Okay, but we did not know they were directly connected to it. And we were going to be locked into a location for 28 days. We did not have cell phones. They took our cell phones from us. We had no Wi-Fi, no television, no radio, no nothing. All we had was each other's company and that energy, that environment for 28 full days.
Wow.
so you,
Unbelievable.
you
Yeah.
not only have the spirit energy wearing you out, you also have the mental and emotional
On a
wearing you out
psychological
too.
level, even if you were not in the environment that we were in, when you're locked away from society for that long, okay, on
Mhm.
a psychological level, it starts to really affect you. And I think that was one of the things that kind of drew me to do this project because, as a demonologist, I go in and I hear these horrific stories from clients all the time. Okay, and they hear voices constantly, they hear music, they hear growling, walking, all of these things that as an investigator, when you go into, again, demons never reveal themselves until they feel threatened. So when you first go in, you don't experience all of those things. And even when you do start to figure out, okay, this is maybe a true demonic haunting, you're still not in that location long enough to truly be affected by it. Now, from a demonologist standpoint, that is armor. That's wearing armor, right? They can't get to you here and here because you don't give them enough time to feed off of you. You go in there, you do your thing, you're full of your positive energy. See, positive energy and negative energy can't coexist. They don't occupy the same space at the same time. One's going to push the other out. However, here's the trick. When you're locked into a really negative location like that, I don't care how positive you are, how much knowledge you have, how good you are at doing what you're doing. If you cannot separate yourself from that energy, it is going to pounce on you and break you down, isolate you. And that is the very definition of a demonic oppression, which is what happened to me.
And we got a question coming up, guys, and I want to let you know, Jeremy said he'd take questions. Here's the first one. At any time, Anthony says, at any time did you feel like a sense of time lost?
So being locked into the environment, well, yes and no. So you mean, if you mean like as a spiritual time loss that you would happen when someone's possessed? No, I never experienced that. But again, we didn't know what time of the day it was. All we know was whether it's light or dark outside. So that also kind of discombobulates you, you know, it messes with your senses and all of that. So on that aspect, yes. I mean, all we knew is if the sun was shining or if it wasn't. I mean, as far as what time of the day, whether it was lunchtime, dinner, we had no idea.
Wow.
Did they take away social media? You know, in terms of
cell phones, there's nothing. They have a computer that they put in there, okay, but it was not hooked to any kind of internet. The only thing it was used for is to go over EVPs and stuff. That's it. Their computer, okay? We couldn't bring our own in. It was their computer. So
you can't get much more authentic than that. You can't.
Yeah, no. They made sure that we had no way to outside source because, see, we didn't know what was going on there. The main story that we were told was, y'all got 28 days to figure out what happened here. What is the connection here? That was the big story, okay? And they wanted to make sure that, because look, we didn't even know where we were going until we got out the vehicle and took the blindfolds off, okay? All we know is we took a 30-minute ride with blindfolds on. Had no idea where we were going. We didn't know what town. I mean, where we were the first night when we got to the hotel, once we landed and got to the hotel, we were probably about almost an hour away from the actual location. We didn't know the name of the town. We didn't know anything. Well, if you watch the show, when I take the blindfold off, I mean, it's a dry goods store. I thought it was a joke at first, but they made it very clear that it was not a joke, in fact. And then, you know, I didn't know what the other teams, I didn't know they had the life of luxury in two big old mansions. Randy, I mean, we slept on mattresses on the floor, for heaven's sakes. We didn't have a stove. We basically lived off of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and pizza rolls for 28 days.
Good God.
Yeah.
Well, questions are flying in. Tara said, Jeremy, what finally made you understand what was happening to you, and how do you feel watching it now?
Well, I'll say this. It's hard for me to watch it. I mean, you know, even my wife can vouch for that. When the first time I see it, and I told her I was probably going to feel that way before it even aired because it was such a horrific experience. I mean, I had a heart attack at this location, for heaven's sakes. So here's the thing. So I guess to be able to answer his question, I really kind of need to start from the beginning. If you watch the beginning of the show, I went in with full authority, okay? I went in there with that presence, okay? You're going to bend to my will because I have the power of God behind me, okay? That's called having the authority, all right? But the thing was, see, these entities are very, very smart. Did we know there was a demonic entity there at this point? Not really. But it became apparent pretty quick. But what happened was, see, entities are going to use what they can against somebody, especially if they're a threat. So what would happen was anytime I would do anything spiritual warfare related, as you notice, Brandy would get attacked. That's at that point it couldn't get in my mind, so it affected her. It's going to do whatever it has to do to make me stop. Well, probably about I want to say maybe day 7 out of the 28 days, Brandy says, Jeremy, if you continue to do spiritual warfare prayers, I'm going to have to tap out because I constantly get attacked. Well, my thinking is this. I am not a psychic medium. I have to have Brandy in order to accomplish our end goal, which is to find out what happened here. So think about what I did. I willingly laid my sword down, my protection, to protect her. Okay. It's very important to understand. I done this to protect her. One, why did I do it? Because I've been a demonologist for 13 years. I've worked a lot of high profile cases, and I've been in a lot of different situations to where you have to really know what's going on to understand what's going on. So when an entity oppresses you, it tries to break you down spiritually, mentally, affect your thinking, isolate you, and break your will so that possession can be given access to occur. Okay. So what happened was I made one mistake. If you watch whenever the entity attacked Brandy, I told it in order to get to her, it has to go through me. That was something that I should have never said. And I will say that right now. But I did it. Why? To make her not be the target anymore. For me to be the target. Because I thought that, okay, Jeremy, you know the signs of oppression, buddy. You can see it coming a mile away. And if it tries to start oppressing you, which is something that it has to do before possession can begin, you'll know to stop it. See, I was wrong because I never had to stay in an environment locked in where I couldn't separate myself from the energy there. Okay, so I don't care how knowledgeable you are, how powerful you are, how long you've been doing or what. If you can't separate yourself from a negative environment like that, it's going to pounce on you and pounce on you and pounce on you and break you down mentally. Okay, and that's what oppression is. I did not realize how potent, I guess is the word to use, that is and how fast it happens. So when I started getting oppressed, I knew what was happening. I knew I was being oppressed. And then I realized, oh, wow, Jeremy, you can't stop this. And I'm going to tell you how I really knew deep down inside, even though the entity tried to make me ignore it. When you see Brandy tell me something and I do the devil horn things, that's something I would never do. And I remember thinking at that moment, oh, my God, this is worse than what I thought it was. Because I knew it was affecting me, but I did not realize how bad. Now, if you watch the show, you see where I got rushed to the hospital.
Yes.
Now, due to HIPAA violations, so a production company or TV show can't put out your medical history. Okay, they can be sued by that, but I can do it. What you saw was a real minor heart attack. Okay, I had a minor heart attack. Now, as bad as that sounds, it was almost a godsend because it gave me the opportunity to separate myself from that location for about 13 hours. And I knew I was going to have to go back and challenge it and face it in order to take back control of my own mind. And that's when you see me confront it. It's not that I wanted to confront it. Not that I thought I was really bad, but, was going to go and confront this thing. What y'all didn't see is how terrified I actually was. If you see me sitting on the bed, there's a small clip and I'm reading the Bible. I literally sat there and prayed for 2.5 hours before I challenged it because I was scared. It was the scariest I've ever been, but I knew I had to do it in order to take back control. Why? Because I put myself in that situation by my own free will. And that's very important, my own free will. So guess what? I had to challenge it by my own free will in order to get back my own free will. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to shoot them at you because people have got a lot of questions. All right, so Jennifer said, obviously longer is better, but 28 days is 28 days a magic number. Can you accomplish the same thing in a shorter amount of time?
Well, accomplish the same thing. Yes, you can accomplish it. I mean, but as far as experiencing From a victim standpoint, no, you can't. Okay, so look, as a paranormal investigator, you always hear your clients say, I'm being held down at night. I constantly feel like there's a presence lurking over me. I have all these thoughts in my mind that are not mine. All of these things, right? I hear voices constantly. I hear music. And let me tell you, as a paranormal investigator, you only know what they tell you. Very seldom do you ever truly experience it. And if you do, there's some people that get lucky. But let me tell you, on about day 18, you start to hear voices. And you can distinguish that as a man and a woman, but you can't tell what they're saying. And it's constantly nonstop, all day long, all night long. It's like it just drives you madly insane. So, 28 Days obviously is based off of the Lux family, the Amityville Horror House. They spent 28 days in that house before, quote unquote, the crap hit the fan. Okay. And they left. They left everything they owned in that house, and they refused to go back into the house. And you know what? I can relate to that now for two reasons. I experienced it myself, and I done a deliverance on a home just last weekend. A beautiful $500,000 home, beautiful home. The family up and left because of the paranormal activity that was going on there. And they're not only paying their house note, but they were paying to have a rent place that they were living at until I was able to get there and do the deliverance on the home. So, just people just don't do that just to blow their money. So that goes to show you how much it really affects a family being in that environment.
Yes. Scary.
Carmen said, would you do it again?
Well, there's two, yes and no. So somebody actually asked me, would I want to return back to Madison Dry Goods Store? The answer to that is no. I have absolutely nothing there that I need to find. I spent all the time in that house or that building that I am going to spend in that building. But would I do it again if I can have a little bit of control over the location that I go to? Maybe. Okay. So if I'm, let's just say, in a place like, one of the other two groups, I mean, yeah, I would. Okay. Now there was dark energy there in their locations, but which I wasn't there, so I don't know. But just from watching the show, I wouldn't 100% say that it's demonic. Okay. It's just a dark energy. It's a grumpy spirit, if you will. So would I go and deal with a situation like that? Absolutely, I would. Because it'll also give me the opportunity to maybe teach someone something. So the way that I look at it is, no matter how horrific the experience that I had, I learned something out of it. And I've had a lot of people message me and say they've learned something about it too. And I think the one thing that anybody can take away from the show is, if you ever watch, no matter how bad of a situation you are in, no matter how scared you are, you have to face your fears and break yourself free. And that's true. I'm not, like I said, I was terrified, but I faced my fear and I was able to get past it. So, there's always.
I think too, it's really important. People don't realize how dangerous this is. People don't realize how you, being a seasoned paranormal investigator, demonologist, we try to stress this so much that even though, like, I've been in this field 22 years, Richard over 25 years, you years and years and years and years, it still can affect you to this day. It doesn't matter how many years in you have. It doesn't matter what arsenal you take with you. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to come under attack. And even though you think you may have yourself pretty well-rounded, it still has the ability to do what it did to you.
Right, because I'm not Superman, I'm just a normal human, and, faith is really what gives you your power, right? Your faith. But when you're in an environment like that, it clouds your mind. So it starts to cloud that faith, and that's whenever they're able to sneak their way in. I mean, that's why they manipulate you, because if they can break down that faith, that connection you have with your Savior, and then guess what? They have the upper hand. you know, and I even sat and contemplated on whether, you know, I did the right thing or not by going on the show, willingly putting myself in that situation. Because look, having authority is a gift that's given to you by the higher power. And if you abuse that, that gift can be taken away from you. And there was a point when I thought that's what happened while I was there. That was why it was so important for me to confront, you know, that entity that was there.
Yeah, guys, I know you guys have got a lot of questions rolled up on
Yes,
us here.
you're loving these questions.
We're going to try to get to them.
Yeah.
Now, Nikki, you touched on this a little bit, but Nikki said, did you realize something was very wrong but couldn't stop it progressing?
Yes, I did. So let me tell you this. This is when I really realized how far things have went. So prior to, I guess about a week prior to Brandy sitting me down, we had a talk. I was having very bad headaches. Again, we knew nothing about the backstory of this case at this time. It's important to understand that. Okay. We knew Charlie and the Lawson family were connected, but all the details we did not know. Okay. So then I got to where there would be a phrase that was always in my mind. It's called problems will cause. Now, on the outside looking in, that makes absolutely no sense. Problems will cause. Okay. What's so great about problems will cause? But I started writing it everywhere. Okay. And Brandy happened to see that. Well, Brandy went to the producers, as you can see, and confronted them because she was very concerned about what was going on with me. Well, the producers, you know, all they did was connect her to a historian. And you've seen that in the show where she talks to a historian. And when Brandy calls me upstairs after talking to the historian and she says, we need to talk, I was angry. Because here we go again, you know, I got to hear this again. Well, when she sat down and she, Charlie was having headaches prior to, you know, him killing his family and committing suicide. Okay, that could be coincidence. And I think you can even see it in my eyes when I look at her because I'm like, okay, what's the big deal? But guys, when she said that they found a letter in Charlie's pocket that says troubles will cause, that's why I looked twice, because at that moment I knew. And look, I get goosebumps even thinking about this now.
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps and I wasn't even in.
Right. And I knew how bad it was. At that moment, I think it's the first time I truly realized how bad.
Oh. Must be having problems with his connection.
You know what?
I knew what was happening, but I couldn't stop it. But Brandy helped me see the light.
I think we're losing you once in a while. You blank out and go black on us, and then you come back.
Yeah, well, somebody calls my phone, and so that's what a minute to reconnect. I apologize. Look, my life's very hectic. Believe me when I tell you.
All right, so Nadine said, hi, Jeremy. Nice to see you here. My question is, after all that you went through and finally going home, do you or anyone else carry any residual negative attachments home? If so, do you have a personal cleansing ritual?
Let me reconnect that. To answer your question, no, because I made sure, and pardon my language, but I made sure I was not taking that shit home with me. Okay. That is why part of the reason why I challenged the entity. I was not bringing that stuff home with me. Now, here's one thing that Jeremy has had to answer 1,000 times. That look that you gave into the camera at the end of the show, are you possessed? And I would be like, no, I'm fine. And they'll be like, are you talking or is that the demon talking?
Oh, my God.
So let me explain something to y'all. The camera guy was somebody that I have worked with before. And if you know my personality, you know, I'm a firefighter. So we bicker back and forth kind of in a playful way. And I think I was walking by, he said something stupid, so I gave him that look. Now, the editors, when they made the show, they said, what a great way to try to lead into season 2. Okay? So, yeah.
Wow.
Well, you know what? It gave me the chills. That's all I can say. That look gave me the chills, I went, "Whoa, there's definitely going to be something else going on."
Right.
All right. So now Nikki asked a question. She's a very straight up, serious fan of ours and dear friend. Do you feel that you may not have followed your own precautions before going in full?
No, I did follow my own precaution going in. As I said earlier in the show, what went wrong was, if you've watched the very beginning of the show, okay, Jeremy, as a demonologist, you have to have control of the entire environment, okay? That's why when you go and do a deliverance or an exorcism, you don't want hardly anybody in the house, because you have to control the environment. Okay. What's done on earth shall be done in heaven. Visualization is a very powerful tool in that situation. I would do spiritual warfare prayers when Brandy would feel threatened. Well, then whenever I would do it, she would get attacked. So then that's when she came to me and she says, Jeremy, you got to stop this or I can't be here anymore. So I willingly put down my sword. Why? To protect her. I knew what I was getting into as a demonologist at this point. She didn't. She's innocent. So I felt it was my duty to protect her. Okay. And that's what I did. And that's when everything started to unravel.
Now, Anthony said, did shadow appear in front of you or just long on the floor? It looked like a pool of water from watching the show. I see a dark pool of energy.
When did that happen?
I know when I saw it, I don't know if you're thinking about the same area. When you confronted it towards the end, you were walking towards that wall.
You were I know what you're talking about. Did I see it? No, but I can feel it. Okay, yeah. So I'm going to tell you this. If you've ever been in the presence of pure evil, you know that feeling anywhere. Okay, yeah. So when I started to walk forward toward that wall and you see me back up, that's because I felt it. It was making itself known very bluntly. And I knew that, pardon my French, all hell was about to break loose. And now I got myself prepared for it. That's why, even though it spooked me when the vase flew off of the wall, you know, I mentally, when I knew it was in there, prepared myself that could happen. Because anytime you challenge, especially a demon, there's always what you call the last push. Even like, for an example, if you're doing an exorcism on somebody, the moment of expulsion, the entity is going to make itself known. Okay, so that's what it was doing. But that tells the exorcist or the demonologist one thing: that means you're winning the battle. Because if it's not threatened, it's not gonna interact with you.
Yeah.
Right? But you still must respect that energy. That is why immediately after that vase flew off the wall, Jeremy stopped. I grabbed why I threw my shirt off, I don't know. Just in the heat of the moment, I guess. But I picked up my shirt and I'm not going to challenge. I done what I need to do. May God rebuke you. I'm leaving the presence. Okay. Yeah. I know that I have that control of me. And that's what I wanted to happen there. That was the whole point of me doing it.
Right. Instead of dropping the mic, you drop the shirt.
Right.
Right.
Jeremy, another buddy of mine, a friend of mine, actually was on a team for a while. He said when that piece of glass flew off the shelf, me and my entire family just about ran out of the house.
You know, when you think about it, and I remember being downstairs afterwards thinking about it, I was sitting on that table. Let me tell y'all something. Especially now after my heart attack, I don't smoke at all, but I've never been a heavy smoker. I've been what you would call, a periodic smoker. I don't think I've ever smoked so much during those 28 days in my entire life, to be honest with you.
Wow. So, Jeremy, let's just dial it back a little bit. So you went in, you had this minor heart attack.
Yes.
Days later.
2 days after I got home, I had a massive heart attack. And I now have 6 stents in my heart. So,
no joke.
As some of your viewers may see, I've lost weight since the show. It was very important for me to get my health back in order, or I may not be here. So
you're looking good, buddy.
And try to stick around. Yeah,
that's fabulous. I just think people don't, again, I want to emphasize this stuff is real. People don't realize that they hit your
Sure.
weakness. And, as far as your heart, that could have been a weak spot for you. And it dug its way in there and it came home with you in the fact that 2 days later.
So, yeah, look, I truly 100% believe, and look in my eyes when I say this, I truly 100% believe that entity played a role in that heart attack. I 100% believe that to this day.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. Now, Nathan brought up something I want to bring up because I saw this on your page on announcements. He said, even if it was demonic, can you still teach me? Here's the thing, Jeremy. Jeremy does demonology classes.
I do.
And so you need to reach out to him on Facebook and get something set up with him on that.
Yeah, I have an online demonology course, Demonology 101, and spiritual warfare course. There's actually 2 parts. If you take both courses, it's 8 weeks of material. However, what that means is you have access to the course for 8 entire weeks. Just take at your own pace, and I don't do it to make a killing, so it's not $400 or $500. For 8 weeks, it's simply $100, and that money goes into the Cajun ministry, which gives me the funds that I need to be able to travel different places to be able to help people.
Which is fantastic. Another great reason why we have respect for you, Jeremy, because it's not about the money, it's about the education. This is what Richard and I emphasize. It's all about learning.
Yeah, it's all about learning and truly helping someone. Because, guys, I'm going to tell y'all, there is no greater feeling. And Richard, you'll be able to understand this. There's no greater feeling than giving someone hope that truly thinks nobody can help them. That is a wonderful feeling. And when you actually help them and free them, they are so grateful. And that, to me, is worth everything.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. It absolutely is. It is. And, it's fun watching these locations. I call them fun hunt shows is what I call them, because they go to places for fun.
Kind of like Ghost of Morgan City. That was a fun hunt show,
I mean, and that was a previous show, and I know they're dramatically different. I want to catch up with that once I catch up with the questions, because we got loaded with questions. So Anthony says, so they set up a safe zone in the building that only positive energy could be at. Would you go back?
What you talking about in that building?
Yeah.
I'm good. I haven't lost anything there, Anthony, but thank you for asking.
And he also asked right behind that, so do you feel as a spiritual person, do you feel your cloth is dirty? I know what he means by that.
No, I'm a sinner. I'm going to tell you, I'm a normal human being, and I repent to my Lord on a daily basis, and he understands that. When my cloth gets dirty, but let's see how I can state this. My cloth can get spiritually dirty. However, if I know I'm going to battle, I put it in the washing machine.
Good analogy.
Does that make sense? Yeah, I make sure it's clean. I really do. I'm a human being. I'm not a priest. I'm an ordained minister. I'm not a priest. This is a call. This is not something that I chose to do. And I want your audience to truly understand that. I promise you, I never raised my hand in high school career day and say, hey, I want to be a demonologist. It found me. And I've tried to run from it many times in my life. But the more I run from it, the more he pushes it on me. So this is something that my creator, my God, wants me to do. That is my calling. With that being said, he understands my faults. He truly understands my faults. But yet he still chose me.
Yeah, agreed. When Richard and I talk about why we got into this field, it's exactly it. We weren't chosen. Like it was, I didn't grow up going, I want to be a fortune teller when I grow up. Like it literally, and did you find that the universe made your life harder until you embraced what you do? Because for me, I found that the universe kind of had a direction it wanted me to go in, and it made all of these other incidences and life events difficult until it kind of herded me into a path that it wanted me in. And God kind of said, this is what I want you to do. And here I sit. And so, you're on the right path because it's, I don't want to say easy, but it's at
your
home.
Life's
You're
not going in circles. Your life's not going in circles. It's a straight path. Sometimes you have to make a decision whether you go left or right, but it's a straight path. It doesn't loop around. I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah. It is hard in the beginning. It really is. Because, when you think about why would anybody willingly, and I tell people this all the time because they're like, oh, being a demonologist is so cool. No, it's not. You're willingly going to confront something that could, physically destroy you.
Yeah.
Okay. The only hope you have is the battle, which is why they call it spiritual warfare. It is a battle that takes place spiritually, which is here and here. Okay. But it still can affect you severely physically. I mean, I've had washing machines thrown at me. I've been punched in the eye. I've been pushed downstairs. You name it, it's happened. And I mean, why would you willingly do that? So going and talking to Uncle Tom in the attic, rattling his chains, earthbound spirit, to me is a lot funner than doing something like that. Because anytime you confront something like that, I truly think it takes a piece of your life.
Absolutely. Your life. And it comes down to, it affects not just you, but your family. So not only on a post-traumatic stress level.
It is so important. Look, I could not do this if it wouldn't be for the understanding that my wife has, because, that stuff can, the old saying, don't bring your work home with you. So as a demonologist, you have to make sure you don't bring your work home with you. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. There's two people. There's Jeremy Leonard, the fat, funny guy, which is me that you're talking to right now. And then there's the demonologist when his glasses goes off. All right. He is cut to the chase, very serious, and inspects everything and tries to control everything in the environment that he is in. I only become that demonologist when I have to. Okay. That light switch gets put on. When I leave there, that light switch goes back off. I leave everything there. That's just like y'all asked. Would I go back to Madison Dry Goods? No. I've done what I needed to do there, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go and turn the switch back on.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
I got to tell you what's funny is, first of all, I got to say, I love our fan base.
We have the most loyal fans.
28 Days Haunted to everybody that comes in. Watch it. We have one person say, what show are we talking about? And at least two people have already said, 28 Days Haunted on Netflix, watch it. I mean, you guys are cool. We appreciate you doing that for our guests. That makes us feel good. So thank you. Now, gosh, got a lot to catch up with. Let me catch up. Stephanie said that she was praying for you during the show. Some say, let me see if I can find it. My gosh, it's a lot. You guys are
so many questions.
Finger cramps keeping it up. Some say, this is what Anthony says, some say that time spent in the spirit world body close does not need food or drink. No, your body needs food and drink just to be able to fight off the energy, in my mind. You can do that, but if your body doesn't have the fuel it needs that'll weaken you, then God bless you, whatever else can come into the room,
Yeah, because that energy is going to try to affect whatever is the weakest part of you. And, if you're weak physically, then guess what? That's what that energy is going to manipulate. And it doesn't really matter whether it's demonic or not. I mean, there's two types of energy. There's positive energy and there's negative energy. Positive energy will feed or attract more positive energy, and it will continue to grow. Negative energy will feed or attract more negative energy. And just thinking about that energy, surrounding you, I mean, it's just pouncing down on you. So, it's gonna start to affect whether it's physically or spiritually, whatever is vulnerable.
And I think too, people don't realize that it's, you're somewhat of an athlete when you're getting into these things. An athlete has to be ready, mind, body, and soul. And so do paranormal investigators. So does somebody like yourself, where you have to be completely in alignment to walk into something like this. The minute that you have weakness, if you're not eating properly, if you're getting over an illness, even though it's a spiritual warfare, you have to keep your vessel going at the same time. So the minute your vessel becomes vulnerable, you spiritually can become vulnerable too. And it's so important to have all of this kind of embodiment on a thin balance so that you can fight this stuff.
You see, and I always refer to exactly what you're saying is listening to your subconscious mind. Mm-hmm. If you are about to do a case and deep down in the back of your mind is saying, no, you're not ready, you need to listen to it. And don't do it until your subconscious mind tells you to go, because your subconscious mind is tapped into all your senses. okay? And it will always lead you the right way. That fight or flight syndrome, if you will. I mean, your body senses when there's danger. Okay, so if you walk into a real dark, heavy environment, you're going to know it. Your body is going to react to that as soon as you do. And people do have different ways that their body will show them that. For me,
Mm-hmm.
it's goosebumps. That's my spiritual warnings when I get goosebumps.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you had a really bad experience after with your second heart attack. So to me, that's not a normal experience, right? You know, when you're finished an investigation and you have somewhat of a hangover, you're tired, you're recuperating. So I guess you can't speak for yourself because of the 6 stints that you had to have put in. But in terms of Brandy, I don't know if you can speak for her. Did she find that she had a hard time kind of recuperating for a while, or the other members of the show? Obviously, you took a long time because of your injury, but.
Right. So anytime you do spiritual warfare, whether it's a cleansing on a house or an exorcism, you always feel like you've been hit by a train. Okay.
Yes.
Really free. So you're going to sleep. So be prepared to sleep for the next 2 days. That always happens. But yeah, Brandy. So Brandy had never been in an environment like that. Okay. That is why I felt that it was so important for me to take the blows instead of her. So
she handled it like a champ.
Yeah, she still actually gets affected by it every once in a while. And me and Brandy talk on a regular basis. I mean, once you spend 28 days with somebody in an environment like that, you form a special bond with them. I think just recently, probably I would say in the last 4 months, she really starting to get her confidence back for one, because it also affected her. I mean, just seeing what I went through in her eyes, as she says, terrified her. So she's just now getting back to where she's going full force, going on investigations again, where she's at and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So Herbie said, this question is for Katie and you, Richard. Would you both ever consider doing a 28 days investigation as well? Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm all for the education. Yes, absolutely.
I'd be able to see the process come to fruition myself. Mort said, Jeremy, on the show, you moved from sleeping upstairs to downstairs. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So this happened on probably day 5. So we originally had beds upstairs, which was in the old embalming room, okay, when it was a funeral home. Poor Brandy could not sleep, okay? She would stay up, wouldn't be able to sleep because she would hear voices and all of this stuff. At this point, I wasn't hearing voices. I thought she was crazy because the paranormal activity really hadn't ramped up at this point in time. This is when we first got there. But nevertheless, she whined a lot about being upstairs. So finally I said, you know what, Brandy, let's just take them and throw them downstairs and we'll sleep there. And it worked for a little while. She was able to actually sleep at night. But guys, I'm 100% dead serious when I say this. Probably the last 6 days we were there, okay, Brandy would refuse to even investigate. I ended up doing the confronting the entity probably on about day 22 to 23 out of the 28 days. Okay, but it got so bad toward the end that Brandy would refuse to even be in that place when the sun went down. If you see in the show, there's a bench right there in the front where she does a lot of talking constantly, and I'm just like, okay. Because she did talk a lot in real life. Tell y'all now. But
I don't know what that's like, Richard?
And she would make me stay out there with her until the sun came up in the morning. That's how bad it got.
That's scary.
Nikki Cameron says, Jeremy, do you still make the sell the bracelets, and do you sell out of the U.S.?
So here's the thing. I used to have an online store, and once the heart attack happened, I stopped it. I stopped doing online store because it was so much for me to handle. You see this? This is a rosary I'm working on right now. I'm just now getting back into having a passion for making rosaries and bracelets again. So I don't sell them right now, but keep watching my Facebook, because sooner or later I may end up start doing it again.
Jeff said, how long have you been in demonologist?
I've been a working demonologist for 13 years. I've been a studying demonologist for 15 years. What I mean by studying demonologist, I studied for about 2 years, 2.5 years, maybe even closer to 3 years, demonology before I started taking on cases. Now, let me explain tell you how I got into demonology. I was involved in a paranormal group way back around 2001, maybe, or somewhere around there. This before when Ghost Lab was on TV. So however far back that goes. I'm a firefighter by professional, so I'm a thrill junkie. Okay, I'm not going to lie to nobody. We started a paranormal team, and it got real popular real quick, and we had a local television show here in Louisiana. And we got contacted by a woman that lived in a town called Mount Hermon, and she went to the Myrtles plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and she claimed a demon followed her home and it was terrorizing her and her 3 daughters. We thought she was nuts. Why? Because that's like a tourist destination. Thousands of people go there every year, and you mean to tell me a demon followed you home? Okay, whatever. But hey, if you let us film it and put it on our show, sure, we'll come. Well, as fate would have it, I ended up seeing. I didn't know it was a demonic entity at the time, but I seen something with my own 2 eyes that scared me very badly. I grabbed my cousin and we ran out of there, and we left the house never expecting to ever return. But my daughter was young at the time, so, being a father, there was one image that stuck in my mind. They had an air mattress in the living room, and they had a crucifix around it, and that's where they slept at night. So I figured, I'm not going back, but I'll get them help. So I went to a couple of churches and stuff with no luck. So then I guess against my better judgment, Jeremy says, there's nobody else to do this but me. So I started learning everything that I could about the topic of demons. And I spent 6 months with that family in that home, off and on, being a barrier between them and the entity. Finally, I was able to find somebody to do an exorcism on the mother. And after that, I got out of the paranormal. It wasn't fun anymore. I had seen the dark side. So I ended up writing a book about my experiences called The Dwelling, a Dark Entity, which you can find on Amazon for like $10. And not long after the book was published, I got a friend request from a priest out of Pennsylvania. His name was Father Joseph Padre. And he wanted to show his gratitude because he read my book and he was surprised that I didn't make myself out to be a hero. And if you read the book, you'll know I've done a lot of bad things that could have got me, or especially those 3 young girls hurt, but I didn't know any better. And he told me he was a retired exorcist with the Roman Catholic Church. And of course, I had a million questions at that point. And we formed a friendship together, and he ended up training me. That's how I got into it.
And you never look back.
Never look back. Can't now anyway. He's got no choice. He's got to forge ahead. All right. So Mario said, do you think that a person of faith has more defensive capabilities when dealing with the darker forces, or would you say that it comes down to individuals and their conviction to stand on their own ground regardless of faith?
From my standpoint, if you don't have faith, you don't stand a chance, because let me explain something to you. You have to be given authority to go up against a demon. So here's my point. If you believe demons, then you can't have demons if there's no God. Just like you can't have night and day, okay? So if demons exist, then guess what? There is the opposite. There is a God. You have good and you have evil, okay? So with that being said, you are battling a spiritual war with an entity, okay? Jesus says, believe in me, and in my name, I will give you the authority to tread on the heads of serpents and cast out demons. Okay? That is what he says. So that is a higher power. Now, I always tell people, look, if you don't want to say there's a physical God, that's your business. But you have to believe in a higher power. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example. This rosary right here. All right, this is just an object. It's my faith in it that makes it divine.
You got it.
Without that, you don't stand a chance.
Yep.
Right.
It's the conviction behind the faith. That's what I tell people. You
Yes.
have to have a conviction behind the faith. No matter
Right.
what it is, once you have that conviction, that's the empowerment.
Well, I will tell you from personal experience. I've had two. Well, let me just put it this way. I'll have two cases I had to go and clean up after because
Mm-hmm.
two men of faith weren't confident enough in their own faith to go and cleanse the home. So they went in, whipped out the smoking candle, all fathers, Hail Marys, and wound up pissing it off because their own conviction to know what they were doing wasn't strong enough. So you could be a man of the cloth, but if your conviction in what you're doing isn't strong enough, it's going to make it worse.
Yes.
And then I will say this as well, and if I'm wrong, somebody come out here and fight me. So just because you have a person who has a faith in God doing a service for you, you have to understand that there's a point maybe that entity could care less about your God.
Yes.
So you need to be fully prepared to do so.
Yeah.
So I don't mind dragging a demonologist in a bad investigation or a bad situation or engagement. I drag Jeremy into the fire with me in a heartbeat. So I'm going to handle the cleansing techniques that I've done. He's going to handle what he does. But together, that whole fence is going to be built with different stickets. But you have to be able to do that. You can't rely on just one thing to be able to do everything for you. It's not going to.
Yep.
No.
I think
And
the
it's a
key
case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I think the key is you truly have to believe in what you're doing, or it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Now, Francine said, so redoing another investigation, would they know your previous heart problems?
Without wearing the armor of God, absolutely. You have to wear the armor of God to shield yourself so they can't see through you. Because if you don't wear the armor of God, they can get into your mind and know everything about you, and they will use your weakness against yourself. Absolutely.
And that's what I explain to people. There's 4 things. I talk about depression, oppression, suppression, and possession. That's the 4 major things that they do. And they slowly make you feel crazy. They slowly make you want to question yourself. They slowly make you weaker to the point where they're able to possess you, being the last straw. And people, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, for that 28 days of the show, it slowly broke you down. It wasn't one specific night. It was them at you the whole time, breaking you down, right?
Yep.
Now, Nikki
Very,
said,
very true.
Was that?
I said very true.
Oh, yeah. Nikki said, what would be your warning signs versus major red flags when engaging negative energies and how it differs from demonic engagement or exposure?
So that's a really complicated question. Red flags. So you got to do your homework, right? So one way to be able to go into if you walk, so as a paranormal investigator, if you was to walk into a demonic location or a home that has a demonic entity in it, so what will come to mind first? You think you would see all kinds of wild stuff happening, right? That would be a red flag. Actually, it's the total opposite. I say this, they are never going to reveal themselves and show the nastiness until they feel threatened. Okay, remember, they don't want to be known. Okay, all they want to know them is the people that they are affecting. That is it. As an outsider, they don't want to be known. So if you go into a location and it's dead quiet, absolutely no activity, it wouldn't surprise me if your clients are telling you things that what would make you believe that it's a demonic case, but you go there to see for yourself and you get absolutely nothing. That probably would tell me that they're probably telling the truth. And another thing too is you got to think about when we talk about demonic infestation. So a red flag is also this: demons do not want to haunt locations. That's not what they do. They want to inhabit or possess someone. Earthbound spirits haunt locations. Now, with that being said, they have to draw energy from something to be able to manifest into the terrestrial world, which is the world that we live in. Okay, so they got to pull energy from something. Demons do not. And again, infestation started like an earthbound haunting, but it gets really aggressive really fast.
Yeah. Now Jeremy Chambers, again, he's a former teammate on a team. We did an investigation of a place that had a demon, um, thankfully low power, and we did the investigation. And one of my guys had actually gotten attacked, um, and I exclaimed quite loudly that in the name of Jesus Christ, you are to leave my man alone, and step away from him right now. Step away. And I felt the surge of negative energy run up on me. And on the recorder, disembodied, we also heard him say, Christ has no power here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, here's the thing. Here's the thing. So, what is the greatest lie the devil ever told? All right, that he don't exist. All right. So, what it's trying to do is, you see, Richard took that, let's say, that heavenly power and embraced it. Okay. But here's the thing: anytime you do anything on a spiritual level, if the entity can get you to second guess yourself, that's why I say it's very important for you to truly believe in what you're doing, because if not, it unwinds everything. That entity felt threatened by Richard. That's why I've done that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, it I didn't know what else to do at the moment, but I just did it. But I had enough conviction behind what I was doing, I guess, to make it pretty much want to communicate with me. I will tell you.
So let me just throw this real quick, Richard.
No, go ahead.
As you're talking about that, in the moment when Brandy gets attacked, if you see me take a holy sacrament, which is a rosary, and I put it on her forehead, that was to push it out, because that is a holy relic that was blessed. So guess what? Negative energy can't coexist. They can't occupy the same space at the same time. So one's going to push the other one out. By putting that on her head, guess what? Any signs of any kind of holy relics demons are going to do two things. Either it's going to enrage them, or they're going to flee.
Yeah. It's funny because with, like, for example, with my team, like, we just got done filming in a very negative location, and there was I actually have a reflection of the demon actually in the window. Oh, it's great. It's funny how I revert back, because I was a minister for almost 8 years, pulpit minister. So it's funny how I revert back to that when I need to. But again, like you said, if you don't have enough conviction in your faith to run you forward, the demon's going to run you backward. And that's, that is something we all have to, because Jeremy said you saved us that night. No, I didn't do anything. But it's just kind of one of those things that people just, I don't think, understand, because in the South, Jeremy, you're in the South, right? So in the South, there's a lot of faith bases out there that believe that anything that appears after death is a demon.
So many people believe that anyway, and that's far from the truth, especially possession. Possession is very rare. Oppression, that's somewhat common. Infestation, yeah, but not everything's a demon. Absolutely not. And there's so much misleading information about what demons can and cannot do, how they end up in, somebody's life in the first place, and all of that. It's scary, some of the bad information that's out there.
I try to emphasize to people that evil energy needs an invitation, consciously or subconsciously. If you have that willpower, that you have that faith, you're able to kind of fight it to a certain degree. But people think by going into these locations, oh, I'll be fine. Oh, I've got this. It's like, no, you've literally welcomed it in. You've opened that door of communication, and that's how it slips in. I often talk about flies in the summer. When you open your screen door in the summer, how many flies flew in that house? You didn't intend them to come in, but the bottom line is they snuck in and they're in your house now. And the same thing, infestation, happens with demonic energy.
I've got that problem with kids. Anyway, so Mario says, so do you all feel that encounters with demon entities are on the rise now? Do you think it's because of an energy shift or down to the presence of more paranormal thrill seekers, not so much investigative groups?
So my thought on this, I think people now in today's society has the tension to get themselves in trouble. a lot more than used to, because and I do think it's because the paranormal is not as taboo as it once was. And you do have those people that go out there, like you said, as a thrill seekers, and almost to get a rush. But I was innocent. I was guilty of this at one point in my life. I'm not going to lie. To be a thrill
We all
seeker
were.
and get a rush,
Yeah.
they end up getting themselves in trouble. And I think that also in a family setting, families nowadays aren't like they once was. Like whenever I was growing up, it's almost like, divorce rate wasn't quite as high. You didn't have, spouses that cheated on each other quite as much. I mean, it still happened, but in a family group, there were a lot more together than nowadays. They're separate. And I think that entities will use that to their advantage as well.
Now, Herbie asked you a question here. He says, do you believe that this was the scariest place you've ever investigated?
Yeah, because now if I wasn't locked into that, so everything that happened to me, if I was only there for a short period of time, I would say no. But being there for the 28 days, feeling hopelessness, and being in that situation and not being able to separate yourself and not being sure about yourself because it convinces you not to be, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you think that, and obviously for the sake of science, you did not know what you were walking into. They were doing this as an experiment. They were trying to gain information. Do you think walking into it with the knowledge beforehand obviously it would have made you better prepared, but do you think you would have been safer going in?
Yes. If I wouldn't lay down my sword to protect Brandy, things would have turned out a lot differently. Yeah. I would have always made sure that I kept control. As much as ability, I would have made sure.
Yeah. Would you ever do another scenario like that where you had to walk in blind, where you were not allowed to know what you were kind of dealing with? Would you go into something like that? I mean, demonology, you had talked about earlier, doing your homework and doing your research and doing all of this stuff. So walking blind, would you do it again, do you think?
Probably so, because, and the simple fact is because I wouldn't know. I would literally be walking in blind. But
right.
Look, even in a bad situation, we can learn very important lessons. Okay.
Right.
So always remember, there's something good that always comes out of a bad situation. And that's with life. That's with everything. But if that bad thing doesn't happen, then the good thing can't happen because it spawns directly because of the bad experience. So now I would know and understand what to do and what not to do. And that's simply what I mean by I would never lay down my sword willingly. I say that, but in the same sense, if I was with somebody that was very vulnerable and they didn't know any better, I don't know. I don't know if I would or not. I can't say either way, but I probably would, just because I have a big heart. I would look, I'm the kind of person that if I can take everybody's pain away in life and put it on myself so that they don't have to experience, I would do it. That's the kind of person I am. So with that being said, I think I would deal with the consequences than have somebody say that's innocent deal with the consequences. Does that make sense?
Jeremy, yeah, that's why God chose you to do what you do, because of that. When you have integrity and sincerity in your heart and you're authentic, that's why God chose you for this.
It's true, but very true. And I agree with that, but that doesn't make it any less dangerous. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
100%.
Even though you have God's authority, okay, the thing that gets in our way, the problem with us is we have free will. And sometimes that's kind of our downfall, our undoing, I mean, I can't see God saying, Jeremy, okay, I want you to willingly walk in there and know that all of this is going to happen. But if I go in not knowing, I think he may understand a little more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Nikki had a statement. She just made a pretty cool statement. It's almost like the production company of the show created the perfect storm in a way.
Yeah, they did. But I don't even think that they really knew what was going to happen with the whole 28-day experiment. But it does play into the perfect storm, and I know exactly what you're meaning. It's just like we were saying earlier. So you seen in the show, it was like around the same time when everybody started arguing. People were calling each other out, saying that they wrote this themselves on a mirror and all that
Yeah.
kind of, and I mean, now as a group, everybody on the show, we have our own chat room and we're all close friends, but that goes to show you what that perfect storm does to somebody. It doesn't matter whether it's demonic or not. If you are in a negative environment, okay, it's going to start affecting you in a negative way.
Now, Herbie said, would you go to the other places for the show?
Oh yeah. Oh, dude, you put
He has a
me in.
lot of luxury, I think, compared to what you had.
Or the other one, I mean, I heard Shane Pittman had a jacuzzi in his bedroom. So yeah, count me in, brother. I'm bringing my shark.
Doing the first right sitting from the jacuzzi.
Right. Hey, I'll have my little K2 meter sticking out. Hey, does anybody want to come get in the jacuzzi with me? Make the little light go on. But yeah, so they were in a lot better location than we were in.
Now, Nikki said, not trying to be mean, but wouldn't it have been more logical to keep you strong than risk losing your star quarterback in the middle of the hailstorm? Sorry, it might sound selfish for just wondering.
Well, what you're saying is logical, and I understand that, okay? But at the same time, you just have to understand. So, Brandy doesn't know what to do if she starts to get oppressed or if possession even happens, okay? She doesn't know. So I feel that she's innocent. I know how they operate and I know what they do. So in a strange way, it makes me feel responsible. I guess is the best way that I can put it. But I mean, to answer your question, you have a very logical point, and I completely understand that. But, as I said, I'm the kind of person that if I'm going to take it so that somebody else doesn't have to feel it. And I was arrogant. Now, make sure I want people to know I was arrogant. I made a mistake. I messed up because I thought I knew the signs and I would be able to stop it on an emotional level, but I wasn't able to. But I didn't know that. Now I do.
But in all fairness, the other teams had 3 members on their team and you only had 2. So, right. That extra person sometimes can take some of that pressure off. And you guys had extra pressure in that situation, right?
Yeah. So, I think that if there would have been a third person, would I lay down my sword, so to speak? Probably not. Yeah. Because guess what? Even if Brandy was to tap out at that point, then there's still somebody else there, right? So, I do think that if there would have been a third person there, it could have really either went two ways. It could have been a lot worse because then you may have had all the fighting and arguing and pointing fingers like you did at the other teams. Yeah. Okay. But so I always say everything always happens for a reason. And there was a reason why there was only supposed to be 2 of us.
Yeah, agreed.
Anthony says, just wondering if you ever had a stranger come up and tell you their troubles, and you know why they sent you.
That's a story of my life. You have no idea. Look, Jeremy's life consists of so I've had 3 phone calls and about 9 messages on Messenger since I've been on this show, which has been an hour and 18 minutes. Okay. Yeah. My life, that's what I do. I respond to people's problems and I try to give them the best guidance that I possibly can. Yes, it happens all the time, all day long.
I understand.
Terry wants to know, and I don't know if you can answer this anyway, but are you doing another 28 days?
That's a tricky question. So again, here's my demands. I want a stove. I want a shower that has more than 5 minutes of hot water. And I don't want to be in a funeral home or a morgue. If I'm in a haunted location with Uncle Frank, maybe. But I don't want to go through what I went through the last 28 days. Now, I will say this, and my wife can vouch for me, probably up until about 4 months ago, my answer to would I do another 28 days was absolutely not.
Right.
I done what I needed to do. But if God wants me to do another 28 days and there's a lesson or something that I can teach the audience that watches it, so be it. You know,
Good on you.
Now, Herbie wants to know, how did they pick the places for you to go to? Was it draw the cards?
I have no idea. That question I don't know. All I know is production team sent me a plane ticket and it said I was landed in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's all I can tell you. Get on a plane on this day, somebody will be at the airport to pick you up. How they pick it and how they go, which to be honest with you, so this is how I think I ended up at the location that I'm in. So the Mac Production, which is the one that done it, also filmed Ghost of Morgan City. So I worked with these producers before. They knew I was a demonologist, and they knew that was the more aggressive location out of the three. That's how I think why they picked me to be there, but I had absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, guys, we're drawing close to the end of the show. I want to give Jeremy time
Crazy.
to kind of pitch Jeremy. What's Jeremy got going on? Where can people get used to you? The whole bit, brother.
All right, so let me go down my list here. So pretty much you can just go to Google and type in Jeremy Leonard. Everything pops up. Okay, but obviously I have a professional page, public page on Facebook called Jeremy Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist. Please give it a like. Anything paranormal that goes on in my life happens there. I also have a private page called Jeremy Leonard. It has 5,000 people on it, so I can't add you as a friend. However, you can still follow that one and be a follower. Just my daily life, I post on there. Again, I always try to keep those two lives separate. I have a book called The Dwelling, a Dark Entity. People can find it, which is how I got into demonology in the first place, on Amazon. I have a podcast that is called Jeremy Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist Podcast. You can pretty much find that anywhere you get your podcast. Let's see. I have a bunch of events I'm going to be doing this year. I can't really. The only one I can name off the top of my head is the Hell House, the Gettysburg Bash, and a couple of other ones. One in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, in April. But I have a whole list of them. You go to my website if you want to find those, and just click on the event link. My website is jeremyleonard.net. It gives you more insight about who I am, where I come from, all of those things. I teach an online demonology course, as someone asked earlier. You can either do the 4 weeks access to the site or the 8 weeks. The 8 weeks is Spiritual Warfare 101 and Spiritual Warfare. Now, let me make this clear. Are you going to be able to go and do exorcisms on people after taking a course? Obviously not. But it will give you a solid foundation on giving yourself the knowledge that you need, to engage in spiritual warfare and know exactly what's going on and how it works. So you can get that if you want to do that. Both courses is only $100. You have all that money goes to the Cajun Ministry to gives me funding to be able to travel to different people that need my help. So it doesn't come out of their pocket, which is very important to me. So with that, if you were interested in that, just send me a message and I'll get you on the right path. I am doing a jail in Alabama in March. It's like a private event. It's going to be me and Destiny and Michael Fox from Fox Paranormal. So we only have a limited amount of tickets. You have 12 tickets Friday night, 12 tickets Saturday night. You get to investigate with me. I'll give a lecture on demonology and stuff before we investigate. You get to eat dinner with me and all that cool stuff and hang out. And I'm a very approachable person. I'm just a normal human being. I'm not a celebrity. Okay. I'm just a normal person. So don't be started.
Let's not stretch the word normal. Let's not.
Yeah, I'm not really normal. You're right, Richard. Let's just say I'm not.
I've met you.
Yeah, I'm really out there. Believe me.
Let's be real.
So let's see, what else am I missing? Instagram, Jeremy Leonard, the Cajun Demonologist. I was on a show called Ghost of Morgan City 2019. It's 8 episodes. Great show to watch. You can find that on Discovery Plus.
I noticed you used a helmet on this show too.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that's kind of the reason why I wanted to wear the helmet on 28 Days Haunted, because I had such a great experience wearing it on Ghost of Morgan City, but it didn't turn out to be as great. And I don't know if I'll ever wear it again, but, yeah, y'all want to know what we're talking about? Just watch 28 Days Haunted and Ghost of Morgan City and you'll know. Okay.
You like the way I
On
did that?
Netflix,
You like the way I did
international.
Yeah, Netflix. So let me tell y'all, the show made it to number 4, I think, in the United States and the top
that?
10, which means the most top 10 watch shows on Netflix has for about a week in the U.S., but it's made number 3 worldwide for almost an entire month. So will there be a season 2? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure there probably will. Will I be on it? If they ask me to, it just depends. But, I'll always try to have some kind of project going on somewhere, along the line. So I think that's about it.
About it. Is there anything you're not doing, Jeremy?
I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping.
You're not sleeping. No, I don't think you are either.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Well, buddy, I'd like to have you hang on as we get ready to close out the show. If that's all right with you, to hang on there when we get done.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And thank you, listeners, for interacting and asking me questions. I love it when people ask me questions. I like to be challenged. So thank you guys so much. That means a lot.
Yes, I'm a little biased, but we have some of the best fans in the world, to be honest with you. They're the most supportive, loyal. They love to ask questions. They love to learn. So, it's
good. Definitely something to be proud of.
Well, hold tight, buddy. We'll catch up with you here in just a minute. We're going to go say goodbye to our friends and hang out just a minute. All right. So, wow, good show. Good show.
Unbelievable. As always, he's got such a great camera presence. He's so good with answering questions. He's so humble. I hope he'll come back again. I know he's been around with us before, but amazing.
Well, he owes me. What? I don't know, but he owes me. No, it was great having him. I always enjoyed having him. He did a good job too when he was stepping in for you.
Yes, absolutely.
He's been doing this now going on 3 years.
I know. Unbelievable.
But guys, we want to thank you for your time. We hope you enjoyed the show. We would like for you guys to come back out next week. I know it's just going to be us.
Yes.
But you'll get through it.
That's okay. Trust me. You'll get through it. Always a good show.
Always is. But guys, we want to thank you very much again for coming out. Thank you for your participation in tonight's show. It means a lot. And lastly, please, in the U.S., have a great holiday. Please be careful. And please be good to one another.
Yeah. And if you like the show, then give it a share, guys. Give it a like and share if it was educational. If you want to hear more, and if you have questions, if you have a topic you would like to hear, you want to learn about, you know what? Shoot us a message. If we can answer it for you, if we can get a topic going, this is why we do what we do.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again for your time, and we will talk to you next week. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
It would be helpful if I knew what I was doing, wouldn't it? It would be.